exactly what you need, finding full text. So in case you are not sure who I am Jennifer Rempel. I'm the Information Literacy and Resource Access Librarian here at AU Library. And here is our agenda for the day. So we'll do a really brief review of session 1, just some of the stuff we talked about in terms of terminology. I'm going to go over, again, real quickly, the parts of a journal article citation. I will mention, or we'll go into then some key search tools for finding full text, and then we'll go into the steps for doing such, and then finally we'll end with interlibrary loans. That's sort of your last resort. Well, I shouldn't say last resort, it's a useful tool, but that's in case you can't find the full text. So my hope from this session is that you take away a few things. So the ability to identify the parts of a journal article citation and what tools you might need to find a particular resource. I also hope that you take away an understanding of how our different search tools work, what they do, and then that you're able to then apply your understanding of these search tools to either find the full text or to request full text later on if that's not available. Okay, so we have a quota to cover, but it'll only be 30 minutes. We'll do a brief recap of last week. So last week we were just doing an introduction to the library search tools and the website, so how to navigate that. We will look at the website again. I'll be doing a lot of live demos here, but for the most part, what we want to take away today is that review of our terminology. So we covered what is a library catalog versus what are library databases. So of course, catalogs are where you find books, ebooks for the most part, and physical media. So we do have physical books in our collection that you can order. We have DVDs, that kind of stuff, if you need those, as well as other kits. And of course, our library databases are our periodical collections. So periodicals are publications like a newspaper or an academic journal. It's published on a periodic basis. So all those articles are what you're going to be able to find in the databases. There's some blurring of the lines here and there, but don't worry about it. This is mostly what you're going to find in each. Oh, so can make sure everybody make sure they're muted. Just going to make sure. Yeah, thanks everybody. Okay. That happens sometimes. Okay, so and just to go back here, what I want to again remind you all of is articles. So what are articles? Of course, they are original studies written by experts in their discipline. And then these articles are collected into journals that are usually on a very specific topic, and they're usually peer-reviewed. Scholarly academic journals that are peer-reviewed are where you're going to find most of your material for your courses and research. And then, of course, databases. So databases are large collections of different journals that are published by different companies. So again, articles are the item you're going to be looking for is usually going to be an article. The article was published in a journal, most likely, and that journal is most likely then in a database, and that's how you access things. Typically, this is all on the web. Some journals still actually do print, or they do print and online, but for the most part, we're thinking of online materials. And again, we're an online university too, so we focus on that as well. Okay, so we'll talk now about the parts of a journal article citation. So I know a lot of you are coming from different academic backgrounds, so you may or may not be familiar with this. Some of you may be extremely familiar with journal article citations. And I do see I have a question there from Monique. I should mention, I hope we can keep the questions just to the end of the presentation, just because we kind of press, it's only a 30-minute session, so it's a little bit easier. And I can't see raised hands when I'm doing my demos. So I will get to your question, but we will have to save that for the end. So hopefully some of you are familiar with the journal article citation, but if you're not, that's all good too. And even if you are, here's a good refresher. So citations include what's called metadata. So metadata is information about information, essentially. So metadata for journal articles tends to include these things. So when you are looking at an article, so hopefully some of you have done that already, and if not, that's okay, you will be, hopefully. But if you're looking at a academic journal article in PDF form, you'll see this here. It's a little bit tiny, but you can see the arrows pointing to publication information and where you'll find it. So the biggest line there, of course, is the title, and then there's the authors, and at the very top, you should be able to see publication information. So journal, volume, issue, publication date, page numbers, DOI, all that stuff. And just to make it a little bit more clear, you can see this is an APA formatted citation. Generally speaking, what you're going to need to include is, and you're going to need to find full text, of course, are the author names, publication date, the article title. Now this is where you want to be careful. You want to make sure you're distinguishing always article title versus the journal title, okay? And here we see the volume and issue numbers. So usually journals are published, say, 4 volumes a year. Or no, sorry, 1 year is a single volume, and they may publish, say, 4 issues in that volume, if that makes sense. So this journal has been publishing for 26 years, perhaps 4 issues a year. So it's, 26th volume, 4th issue. Page numbers, of course, and then the DOI or the URL. So these are a bit newer, but DOIs and URLs are useful for finding things, and we'll talk more about those in a moment as well. Okay, so now that we have sort of the background information about the kind of citation information we're going to need, we are going to talk about our main search tools. So a lot of you are hopefully familiar with Discover, and again, I will be going into live demoing, so this is just background. So Discover is our main search tool. This is where you're going to find links and citations for scholarly and non-scholarly materials. So this does include journal articles as well as newspaper articles, videos from some of our vendors, conference papers, books chapters, all kinds of stuff. Discover is kind of a huge, massive search tool because what it actually is, and you can find it on the homepage, this is our default search on the homepage. And I mentioned this a bit briefly last time. So Discover itself is not a database. This is something to be very aware of. It's a search tool. Now, again, this illustration here, I tried to make this, hopefully it's clear. So metadata is citation information. So we have our library catalog with our books and ebooks mostly, and then we have all of our vendors. So Springer, Web of Science, Elsevier, Ovid, all of our different publishers, publishing journals are called vendors. They provide metadata. So what Discover does basically is you put in a search tool, it's searching the library catalog, it's searching metadata from our vendors, so all of the citation information for thousands and thousands of millions of articles, and information from the open web. So again, we have individual databases and open, like online, open access collections, and the library catalog. Discover basically is pulling in metadata and then linking to full text where we can. So this is where it gets complicated. Again, you see we have vendor metadata. Metadata, this is all just citations from our catalog. These are going into Discover. You do a Discover search, you will see full text links. That's because we have a WebBridge linking software that, if possible, links you to the full text within the database. So it is kind of a roundabout way of finding things. And the reason it exists and we have it is because it is a great way to search a lot of places at once. So you see you have all these different individual databases. You have all these open source collections online. Discover is supposed to be a way to search everything at once. But unfortunately, there is no tool in the world that exists that searches everything at once, unfortunately. So we do the best we can. We cannot always link to full text through Discover, but we try. Okay, so Ken, that leads us to databases. What Discover is doing then, it's linking you into databases where you will actually find the full text for the most part, if we subscribe to it. Another question, another wrinkle, scholarly and sometimes non-scholarly materials. So you can actually find newspapers in some of our databases, but for the most part, our databases are going to be where you're going to find that scholarly, peer-reviewed journal articles. And we have a list of our individual databases. Again, we'll get into this more with our live demo here. So if you go to the library homepage, under Find Databases, you will see another Find Databases link, and that will take you to the list. All right, and then finally, journal titles. This is another tool. This is kind of going from Discover to databases a little bit smaller, and then even more granular is the journal title list. So the journal title list is essentially a list of the individual journals that the library subscribes to. So in this case, if you already know exactly what article you want, then you might want to do journal title search because you have the title of the journal already. So then you can see if we have access that way. And again, I'll go into that in more detail as well. And then Google Scholar. Again, we're not going to go massively into Google Scholar. We have a whole other webinar. I haven't done that in a while, but we have a whole webinar on Google Scholar that we'll do later. But basically, Google Scholar uses the Google search algorithm tool, but it's only pulling metadata from scholarly sources. So open web, institutional repositories, publishers, that kind of stuff. The focus is scholarly materials in Google Scholar as opposed to the open web. And then finally, and I'll just show you, there are links to Google Scholar from our FIND databases. I'll get into that later, and that's just what it looks like there. Finally, I will very briefly talk about the catalog where you find books and ebooks, just because sometimes you will find book chapters in Discover or elsewhere. And then, of course, you want to see if it's a book chapter, what book is it in? And this is under the homepage also, library catalog, which we will also get to in a moment. And then very, very finally, Internet Archive, our sort of endangered useful. I don't know if anyone's following the news about this. They just got sued and lost, so they might be disappearing. But it's a very useful place for digitized books. So again, the library, we're a relatively small collection as far as university libraries go. So we do what we can to get you what you need, but sometimes we rely on outside sources like Internet Archive. Again, that's under our FIND databases list, but also on the open web. And I'll have a handout that I'll send to everybody too with all of these links. So you don't got to worry about that so much. Okay. So we're going to do some demos pretty quick. I want to just talk about, those are the tools. Again, a very brief intro to the tool. And trust me, we have webinars or instruction material on almost all of those tools. So don't worry about it. I can show you where you can find those tools or those instructional materials later on. But the general steps I would take, if I have a citation, I could first check the DOI. Because the DOI, what DOI is a digital object identifier. So what that means is it's a number with a link that takes you directly to that article in the publisher's database or website. So I also will then show you how to check Discover for titles. We'll look at Google Scholar. Then we'll look at the journal titles and the databases for finding stuff in our collections. Finally, we will look at book chapters briefly with the catalog and the Internet Archive, and I will end with interlibrary loans and show you where you can find information on that. Okay, so now we're going to do some live demos. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to share my screen instead. So where I'm going to start, I'm actually going to start here, accessing sources. This is also going to be a link in the handout. Oh, sorry, just everyone make sure you're on mute. Thanks. Okay, so this is where you're going to start with accessing sources here. This is just a brief rundown of where to find things. So Discover, Google Scholar, or journal title search, Google Scholar. Oh, you can't see?
There we go.
Can you see this screen now?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, so this link is just this guide here, just a rundown of the things I'm going to talk about in this session. And I'm actually going to start not at the library homepage, but at the AU homepage, because we often get questions, oh, how do I get to the homepage? For me, it's a bookmark, so I always go there. So to get to the library homepage, if you start here at the Basco website, you just go to the library. I'm going to close this. Okay, so what we're going to start with too is DOIs. So if we go back real quick.
I didn't want to take.
Sorry, everyone, can you please mute your microphones? Just everybody, maybe just take a second right now to make sure you're muted. So, thanks. Okay, so I'm going to go back here to this example that I showed you before. So again, we have our author, title, all that stuff. We can find this in a couple of ways. First thing to check probably is just the DOI, because this is, after all, supposed to be the main way to find it. So DOI, Digital Object Identifier. And here we are. Immediately links me to this page. So what you're looking at here is a publisher website. It looks pretty much exactly the same as the publisher's database, but this is their public-facing site. So what a lot of students do is they will find articles on the open web and they say, well, you don't have it because I'm in Taylor and Francis, but there's no PDF. But you actually have to go through the library website for the most part. In this case, I followed the DOI. It's taken me to the publisher's website, and I can see here, oh, it says view PDF. So there we go, and it's right there. Because, not to get into it too much in terms of how things are published, but increasingly, publishers are opting for open access. So rather than putting things behind subscription paywalls, the author pays a fee, and then the publisher makes the article free for everybody to read. So this is online, open access. So this article here, very easy to get to. Click on the DOI and it takes you right there. But that's not always the case. Because as you can see, we'll try this one here. This is another related article on a similar topic. I have this citation, maybe my professor gave it to me, said read this article, it's pretty useful. Okay, great, I have this citation, now what do? Copy paste the DOI, but this time, as you can see, and which is unfortunately far more common, is you will get to a page that looks like this. So the publisher, Springer, publishes the journal Behavior and Social Issues. Here's the abstract, but now it's saying log in via institution or by article. You can see how expensive they are too. So again, never buy anything. Like I said last time, never buy anything. We can probably get it for you. You will also see this. Many people try to use this, log in via an institution. It is not how it works. There, again, all the complications. There are many ways to configure subscription access to library resources, different tools. We use a different tool, which makes it so that you actually have to go through the library website and your login. So this will never work. These access links never work on publishers' websites. So instead, what we will try is our Discover search. Because again, we got to go through the library homepage. So if we go back to our citation, the DOI didn't work. So let's take the title. Okay, Constructing Global Climate Justice. Let's go back and now look at Discover. This showed you before. This is our Discover search, again, our meta search tool. Put the title in there, take a look. Let's see if we have it. And oftentimes you will want to put the title within quotation marks if you get like a whole bunch of results, because quotation marks keep the title listed as a single sentence. And so this is being a bit slow. Hopefully it will work. So we are doing a Discover search. Okay, so this is actually a good lesson, because when this happens, just click reload, it'll work again. Again, with all of our vendors, our complicated systems, sometimes things can be slightly slow. I'm really hoping we're not having an outage in the middle of my presentation, because that would not be fun. All right, so as we're waiting, I think unfortunately there may be an outage. Okay, well, this is a good lesson, because if this doesn't work, unfortunately, I cannot show you the link right now in our collections, so that's not good. But then I can hop to then the next part of my presentation, which is Google Scholar. So, okay, this was supposed to be available in our collections. This isn't working. I'll try again later. Hopefully it's a momentary thing. But here you see, we'll go to Google Scholar. Now, what I want to show you about Google Scholar, again, this is extremely useful, and I end up using it a lot to find full text because it's really fast. But what makes it fast is a couple of things. You can find Google Scholar in our Find Databases list. Because again, with Google Scholar, if you want to take advantage of links to the library, if you look at Google Scholar, you can go through here, and as you'll see in the URL, there will be, okay, and if there's an outage, okay, there's an outage, I think, so this is going to be more challenging today. So of course there's an outage right now, but normally it's take you to Google Scholar, but in this case, you can also set up, and this is why it's a better idea to do this. Okay, now it's working. Okay, you can also set up AU library links. Okay, so if you're in Google Scholar, you have a Gmail account to use it, unfortunately. All these things require that. Go to Settings and Library Links. And again, I'll send you a link. Then the link will be in the handout I'll send you to Google Scholar, but you go to Library Links and then type in Athabasca and search. Because what this does is it connects your personal, like Gmail, Google Scholar settings to the library. So now if I save this, I can do a search and it will link to AU library results when possible. So in this case, let's see, I'll give this one more try because the idea was to demo Discover. Okay, I think it's working now. Sometimes there's momentary blips. It could be a busy time of day, actually. We're very busy this morning. Okay, here we are. Now, there's our article. Okay, so just to go back, we have copied the title, done a title search because the DOI didn't work. We've done a title search, and now it's taking us to the PDF, which we can open in full text here. Okay, so now we're in Google Scholar. So I've shown you Google Scholar. We have our AU library link set up. I do want to show you another example here. So I'll go here. I'll just show you again here with the same one. Because if that did not work, I could have gone to Google Scholar and done my search. And there you see, in this case, Athabasca University Library, it would take you to the database within Springer. Okay, so now I want to show you these are some searches you might do if you already have a citation. If you don't have a citation already and you're just doing a search, so most students get to challenges with full text because they're doing a search and the Discover search results aren't working properly. So a common question we get about Euro qua and po did no shodi. Okay, I think I remembered that. This is the question we get fairly often from history students. They're studying the Iroquois, aka Haudenosaunee, and they're having trouble finding stuff. So I'm going to do just a quick search here. Again, this is not the search strategy webinar, right? That's next week. I'm really briefly showing you a search and what could happen if materials you're finding in your Discover search aren't immediately available in full text. So you can see here it is searching the library catalog as well. I'm only interested in scholarly materials, scholarly journals rather. Books are scholarly too sometimes, but in this case. Okay, so we have a couple of links here that we could try that don't have full text. So I think the example I wanted to show you was, so you know what's also interesting about Discover is it updates all the time. So literally the article I was going to show you I cannot find right now because they've added more results because it's pulled in more data, but that's okay. In this case, we'll take a look at this one. Look at the full record. You see that there is no full text immediately obvious. So in this case, you say, well, you don't have full text, so what do I do? Do I just not use it, or what's the option? So again, first thing is, in this case, I'm not seeing a DOI anywhere, although there is a link here you could try. I'm going to just try the Google Scholar link here. So you can see, go back. And of course, this item is not available in Google Scholar either. So that's where you get to a bit of a tricky spot. So Google Scholar has a lot of things, but not everything. So if you've kind of exhausted your, you tried the DOI, in Discover, there's no full text. There's no full text in Google Scholar. Now what? Well, a couple things to look at here. Here you can see the journal is Law and History, and it's in what's Hein Online. And now this takes a little bit of know-how, but if you are more familiar with the library, Hein Online, you can see, is a database, right? So Hein Online. So again, if you're having trouble finding full text of an item in Discover, always look at the full record, because the full record really does give you a lot of information on how to find things. So I could always try this one too, but may or may not work. And it actually probably would, because you see Hein Online and our AUPAC link, this would take us into the database, but I want to do a demonstration here instead. So we'll do the other way. So here you can see the database is Hein Online. The journal is Law and History. So a couple things you could do, Law and History, and it is punctuated oddly, but that's sort of the postmodern way of doing things these days. So we'll do a journal title search. So I know it's in the database Hein Online, and I know it's in this journal, but I'm not sure if the library has Hein Online, so I'll do my journal title search for Law and History. The journal it was published in, and sure enough, okay, Law and History, Journal of New Zealand Law and History Society, present in Hein Online up to the present. So we open link a new tab. This takes us into the database called Hein Online. And I will, I don't have the title there with me, but I'll grab the title from here, Sovereignty versus Citizenship, do my title search. And again, oftentimes you want to put things in quotation marks, but you don't always have to if it's a full title. And we'll just see what happens. And you'll see, there we go, full text. So this was from the journal title search. So the journal was Law and History. I followed the link to the database where the journal Law and History is held. Alternatively, if I know it's in Hein Online, go to Find Databases, look for Hein Online, whoops, spell it right. There's a good lesson too, Hein Online. You can't have typos there because it won't work. And then there you go, it takes you to this database. So you can always check for our database list too, if you know what database an item is in. One thing I want to show you guys also is Ovid. If any of you are nursing students, be aware of Ovid. Sometimes the links in Discover do not work. So you want to just do a search for Ovid, and with a space at the end, Ovid, and then journals Ovid at full text. So they can find Ovid there. So you can see, this is our entire database list, though, of all the databases we subscribe to and that we link to. We're working on refining this list, but for now, this is where you'll find basically all the databases that we subscribe to. or that we have access to rather, and then the journal titles list is where you're going to find the journals. And I hope this is all pretty clear. I'll do another demo here too, just to show. So in this case, I hope you can see this screen as well. It's a little bit smaller. I found I'm taking a medieval history course, for example, and my instructor wants me to read this article about late antiquity and eating disturbances. Looks kind of interesting. So I'm looking at this, and it says here, this looks different, right? E.N.C. Tumiger and P. Singer, eds, mental illness and ancient medicine. So I can tell from this, has eds. This is probably not a journal article, right? Probably a book. So in this case, you can take a look and see, oh, maybe this article, so this is a book chapter, right? So when you can tell this is a book chapter and you can't find the full text, again, you can do a couple of things. You could check in Discover. The problem with Discover and journal article, or sorry, book chapters is it doesn't always have the individual chapter. So if you do a search for this, you might not necessarily find it, but we'll see. Okay, and then this is actually good. So it did actually catch this. If you do keyword and do a search, oh, okay, great. This is in this ebook, or this book rather. If we go here, we can see the problem is there's no way to actually get to this book because it's a print monograph. So now what do I do? Well, in this case, let's just see if there's an ebook version. Again, there's a lot of information I'm showing you here, but for books and ebooks, you go to the library catalog, and we'll do a title search, not for the article, but for the book it was published in. So the book it was published in is Mental Illness in Ancient Medicine. So in this case, I will see, do we have this book? Again, if you're looking at the overall container of the chapter, you want to search for that. So in this case, oh, there we go. We do actually have this book. If you follow the link to eBook Central and skip the privacy error, we're not sure what that's about. I will look at that later. If you skip ahead, you can actually then get to, because those errors, there's something with the HTTPS that we have to look at. Anyway, this takes me to the book, and I can see if I go to the table of contents that this chapter will be available there. So again, we've gone from citation to book chapter in the catalog. Finally, one more, very complicated one. I had to kind of reverse engineer this one because it was kind of challenging, because it's frankly, not very often that you will go to Internet Archive for articles, but this is a weird one. This is a kind of a quasi-article, quasi-book chapter. So this is published in a university's conference proceeding. So this is a complicated one. Again, I'm in medieval history. I want to look at this article here. It's an editor, but it's not a book because it's saying it's papers from an international conference in Copenhagen. Okay, cool. So let's see. We have the title of the article and the title of the container, the publication it was published in, right? The book, essentially. So it's called Image and Alter. So, okay, I don't need to copy and paste the whole title, so I'll just try Image and Alter and see what we find. Maybe that is in our catalog. So I'm running a bit low on time here. It'll just be a few more minutes. If people can stay late, that's great. If you have to log out in 2 minutes, we will send you the video probably next week. So Image and Alter. Okay, this book is not in our collection or this item or whatever it is. So in this case, I'm going to try the Internet Archive. And again, oh, no, it's the wrong one. It looks the same though. Internet Archive, it has that like the pillar icon. There we go. So the Internet Archive, again, unfortunately, might not exist for much longer because they were sued. But while we still have it, it's actually really useful for books. So in this case, and just fun stuff to look at. But in this case, okay, we don't have the book in the library collection. I want to see if we have it here just in case. Image and Alter, do we have it? And let's see. I mean, I know we do because oh, whoops, that's really not safe for work. My apologies. Sorry about that. We have to get the whole title. And let me blur that out. And that's the thing with Internet Archive. It's not safe for work. I will say that. That was I should have used a longer part of the title. My apologies. All right, that's kind of funny. I'll blur that out in the recording. Okay, so here we are. Now we see the actual thing we need. Image and Alter. It's a special publication that's sort of half book, half journal. It's conference proceedings. So there we go. Now you can see the whole thing is digitized. You can, if you log in, the thing with Internet Archive, again, it's not associated with the university at all, not with our collections. You create a personal account and then log in, and then you borrow the books to read them online. Okay, so we've covered a whole lot of materials, and if you just zoom in here, I don't want to borrow it right now because I don't feel like it, but if you zoom in, you can see, okay, there's a chapter I need. Perfect. And it's all available in the Internet Archive. So, all right, in conclusion, we finally got to the end. I just made it. It's 1:30. So if you do have questions, if you can stick around, that's great. And if you can't, you can email your questions to the library. So I wanted to just show you really quickly a couple things here in terms of getting support. Oh yes, interlibrary loans. Finally, if we absolutely do not have an article or a book chapter that you need, you can get it through Interlibrary Loan. And again, there will be a link to the Interlibrary Loan website or the Interlibrary Loan page on my handout. So to get there, you go to How to Use the Library, Borrowing. Unfortunately, it's a lot of clicks. Interlibrary Loans. And then this will take you to our ILL webpage. So Interlibrary Loan, basically what we do is anything that if you're an undergraduate student, anything that can be scanned and sent out through email can be probably gotten from another library. So article or book chapter that we don't have, we will get it from another library. They will scan it, they'll send it to us, we'll email it to you. So it's not a loan per se, you're not borrowing it, you don't got to return it. Graduate students can interlibrary loan for books. You want to contact our interlibrary loan staff person for more information there or look at this website. But basically, don't pay for anything. I really stress this, and I can't stress it enough. Like, you always run into paywalls, unfortunately, online. Do the best you can. So again, check DOIs, check Google Scholar, check our collections, check our databases. If we absolutely don't have what you need, you can ask us for help if you really think we might have it, or just order it through Interlibrary Loan. Interlibrary Loan, again, it gets sent to you through email, usually within a few days. I find I do ILL all the time for my own personal stuff, and it's really quick, a day or two. Okay, so all that to say, we're finally at the end of the session. I did have to rush a little bit towards the end, and hopefully I have time now for your questions, and I'll stop sharing my screen. Oh yes, handout. I will post the handout right now, actually. Some of you may or may not be able to access it because it could be only available to, let's just see, enrolled students, but let's just see if I can upload it. Because to be honest, they're constantly changing the apps. So I do not believe I can upload a file with the version I have. But what I will do is we have all your registration email because you signed up. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this video recording, I'm going to put it on our YouTube channel, and I'm going to send you an email with the link to that recording as well as the handout. So the handout will be shared probably within a few days because it takes time to process and edit the videos. So yeah, but any questions anybody has about finding full text? This was a real huge, like real whirlwind kind of rundown. But again, the key takeaway is, try and find it. Try a couple of ways to find things. Try a bunch of different tools. And if we don't have it, we can probably get it for you. Again, don't pay the publishers. They have enough money. Okay, so it looks like we have no questions. So thank you all for your comments. Glad it was helpful. I see a raised hand. If you want to go ahead and use your microphone, if you don't feel comfortable with chat.
Yeah.
Oh, hi.
No, that's
Yeah.
okay. Can you hear me here?
Yes.
Hey, Jensria, thank you very much. Very helpful presentation for me. I'm just
Thanks. You're
wondering,
welcome.
so like, would you basically say if we're looking for an article, like we can see it in the Discover search, but we can't find it in full text like immediately or in its database, like, is there any context where I should just like give up and be like, okay, I can't get access to that? Or would you say like there's always kind of a workaround to get access to an article if it's in the Discover search?
Yeah, I mean, there's not always a workaround because the challenging thing with Discover, like I said, is it's massive. Like it's pulling in massive amounts of data, almost to the point where it's more challenging sometimes for people to use than other tools. So what I would suggest is, yeah, try the DOI, and then so the DOI, if it has, and again, actually, I should point out too, not everything has a DOI. So particularly items published before the internet era and digital publishing really took off, try the DOI first, because that will at least tell you where it was published and what database it might be in. So it might say, okay, this is published in this journal and it's in Elsevier or it's in Science Direct or whatever, right? So try that first. Try Google Scholar. And if, honestly, journal title search, though, is like Google Scholar, I like it because it's really quick and convenient. But that said, it also is not comprehensive. So there are oftentimes items that are not, like I showed you, not actually in Discover, but are in like Hein Online or a different collection. So I would say just try the first three things. DOI, if it's a Discover item. DOI, and then the journal title search, and then Google Scholar, because the journal title search is definitive as well. So if it's published in a specific journal and we do not subscribe to that journal at all, then, and it's not in Google Scholar, then we probably won't have it in full text. So then you would want to go to interlibrary loan. I wouldn't say give up quickly, but also it's a balance. Like you don't want to waste too much time either, frankly. Oh, yes, and I also wanted to mention, speaking of wasting time, just what we're seeing increasingly is students are bringing us citations that were generated by ChatGPT. So I don't want to get into my whole rant about that, but basically ChatGPT is not a good place for finding research materials. It constantly makes stuff up. Many, many times I have, not many, but a few, it's increasingly happening. A couple of times myself and my colleagues have had students ask for articles and they give us a whole citation. It looks very plausible. It might even be a journal that actually exists, but it's fake because ChatGPT isn't actually searching or thinking. It's just predictive text essentially. So it can look like a really real citation, but you will waste tons of time trying to prove it doesn't exist. That can be really challenging. So again, it's a bit of a side thing, but if I would say don't use ChatGPT at all because it's actually not that good, but especially don't use it for generating citations because you will waste time trying to decide which ones are real and which ones are fake. And that's really challenging to do, especially. So it's hard enough as it is, like, frankly, it's making you do more work. But yes, hope that answers your question. I kind of rambled a little bit, but yeah. All this to say, there's a lot of material out there that can be complicated to get to. But we are here
Yeah,
to help
thank
you
you.
no matter what. Oh yeah, you're welcome. We're very much here to help you. And again, like, of course, like, we don't get mad if you email us or send us a chat. Like, ideally, you would, again, do some digging on your own to try and find these things, but sometimes it's a challenge. Okay, so I think with that, I don't see any more raised hands or questions, so I think we'll wrap up the session there. And again, I will email you the links and the handout probably in a few days. So thank you all for attending, and I'll say bye then. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. Bye, everyone.